You know, there's a specific kind of silence that settles over a house when the person who made it a home is gone. It's not just quiet. It's heavy, like the air itself is pressing down on your chest, daring you to try and take a full breath. And for the last 730 days, that silence was the only roommate I could tolerate. My name is Caleb Vance, and if you saw me on a job site in South Chicago, wrestling with drywall or screaming over the roar of a generator, you'd see a man who looked like he had it together. A guy running his own construction crew, raising his little girl, paying his bills, doing the damn thing. But the truth is I was a ghost haunting my own life. A man who had died 2 years ago right alongside his wife, Tasha, but forgot to lie down. And I probably would have stayed that way, frozen in that gray limbo, if my best friend Marcus hadn't decided to pull the cruelest, wildest, most necessary stunt in the history of friendship. It was December 20th, a Friday. The kind of Chicago winter day where the wind whips off the lake and cuts right through your Carhartt jacket like a razor blade. And I was sitting in my truck, eating a sandwich that tasted like sawdust, staring at a half-finished framing job that was already 3 days behind schedule. My phone buzzed, and it was Marcus, my foreman and the only guy who knew exactly how broken I was under the tool belt. "Listen, Cal," he said, his voice way too chipper for a man freezing his tail off. "I got a lead on a big contract, huge, like retire early huge. A donor wants to build a new pediatric wing at St. Jude's, but she wants to vet the contractor personally tonight. She's meeting candidates at the Iron Skillet at 7. You need to be there." I wanted to say no. I wanted to go home, pour a whiskey, and stare at the wall until I fell asleep. But Marcus pushed the one button he knew still worked my pride in the business, Tasha, and I built. So, I went. I scrubbed the drywall dust out of my beard, put on the one button-down shirt that didn't smell like sawdust, and walked into that diner, expecting a grilling about load-bearing walls and permits. What I found was a woman sitting in the back booth, wearing blue medical scrubs and looking like she hadn't slept in a week, nursing a black coffee like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her name was Elena, and the second she looked up at me, the air went out of the room. It wasn't the look of a wealthy donor sizing up a contractor. It was a look of recognition, of sorrow, of fear. I walked over, put on my best business smile which felt rusty as hell, and stuck out my hand. "Ms. Rossi, I'm Caleb Vance, Vance Construction. Marcus said you're looking to build something." Elena stared at my hand for a long second before taking it, her grip shaking just a little. "Caleb," she said, and the way she said my name, with this heavy familiarity, made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Please, sit down. We need to talk." "But it's not about a building." I sat, but I didn't get comfortable, my gut twisting into a knot. "If this isn't about the contract, then why am I here?" Marcus said. Marcus lied. She cut me off, her voice soft but steady. "Or, well, he bent the truth because he knew you wouldn't come otherwise. I'm not a donor, Caleb. I'm a nurse. A hospice nurse." The world stopped. The clatter of silverware, the hiss of the espresso machine, the low hum of conversation, it all vanished, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in my ears. Hospice. That word was a trigger, a portal back to the worst 6 weeks of my life. The smell of antiseptic, the sound of that oxygen machine, the way Tasha's hand felt smaller and smaller in mine. I stood up so fast my knees hit the table, rattling the silverware. "This is a setup," I snarled. And I didn't care that people were looking. "You think this is funny? You think my wife's death is some kind of networking opportunity? I don't know who you are, lady, but you tell Marcus he's fired." I turned to leave, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, blind with rage, needing to get to the door, to the cold air, to anywhere but here. Tasha made me promise. Elena's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise like a gunshot. I froze, my hand hovering over the brass handle of the diner door. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because if I did, I might shatter. "What did you say?" I whispered, the anger draining out, replaced by a cold dread. 2 years, Elena said, her voice trembling now. She made me promise that exactly 2 years after she passed, during Christmas week, I would find you. She said you'd be angry. She said you'd try to run. She said to tell you that the blue paint in the nursery was her idea, not yours. so stop taking credit for it. That broke me. It was a stupid, inside joke. Something we argued about playfully when we were painting our daughter JoJo's room 8 years ago. Nobody knew that. Nobody but Tasha and me. I turned around slowly, and there sat Elena, tears tracking through the exhaustion on her face, clutching a worn manila envelope to her chest like a shield. "Please," she said, gesturing to the empty seat. "I've been carrying this promise for 700 days. Don't make me fail her now." I walked back to that booth on legs that felt like jelly and slid in. I looked at this stranger, this woman who had apparently held my wife's hand when I couldn't, and I felt a mix of gratitude and resentment so strong it choked me. "You knew her. I was her night nurse for the last month," Elena whispered, pushing a napkin across the table as I wiped my eyes. "We talked, late at night, when you fell asleep in the chair next to her bed, and you always fell asleep holding her hand. By the way, she would wake up and we would talk. About JoJo, about you, about how terrified she was that you'd turn into stone once she was gone." I looked out the window at the snow falling on the Chicago streets, remembering those nights, the exhaustion, the desperate bargaining with God. "I did turn into stone," I admitted, my voice rough. "It's the only way I can function." "She knew," Elena said, reaching into her purse. She said, "Caleb is a builder. When things break, he tries to fix them, but he can't fix death. So he'll just build a wall around himself and hide behind it." She wanted to make sure you didn't stay behind that wall forever. She slid the envelope across the table. It was battered, the corners bent, like it had been carried in a purse every day for 2 years. On the front, in Tasha's unmistakable, looping handwriting, it just said, "For my bear, I can't." I said, pulling my hands back like the paper was on fire. "I can't read that, not here." "Not now, you don't have to read it yet," Elena said gently. "But there's a video." She made me record it 3 days before the end. She made me swear on my nursing license I wouldn't show it to you until the 2-year mark. She said you needed time to be angry, time to be sad, but 2 years was the limit. She gave you a deadline on grief, Caleb. A laugh bubbled up in my chest, a wet, jagged sound. "That sounds like her, always managing the schedule. Do you want to see it?" I nodded, unable to speak. Elena pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and propped it up against the sugar dispenser. And there she was, Tasha, my Tasha. She looked thin, frail, the cancer having stolen her curves and her hair, but her eyes, God, her eyes were so bright, lighting up that dim hospice room. She was wearing that ridiculous beanie with the pom-pom I bought her at a gas station. "Hey, Bear." Tasha's voice came through the tiny speaker, raspy but strong. "If you're seeing this, it means Elena found you, and it means you haven't fired Marcus yet, which is a miracle. Listen to me closely, Caleb Vance. I know you. I know you're sitting there right now, probably wearing that same gray flannel shirt, looking at Elena like she's an intruder. Stop it. Be nice. She's doing me a favor." I touched the screen, my finger tracing her face. "I'm leaving you, baby. And it sucks. It sucks so much I can't even say it. But I'm not leaving you so you can become a monk. I'm not leaving you so you can turn our house into a museum. I want you to live. I want you to build things. I want you to love JoJo with everything you have. But you can't be her whole world, Caleb. That's too much weight for a little girl. You need a life. You need joy." She paused in the video, taking a rattling breath that tore my heart in two. "So, here's the deal. It's Christmas. I want a tree. A real one, not that plastic thing you tried to buy in 15. I want lights. I want you to take Elena, yes, the nurse. She's single and she's kind, Caleb. Trust me, I want you to let her help you decorate. Just decorate. That's step 1. Don't think about dating. Don't think about forever. Just let a little light back into the house. I love you. I love you more than there are bricks in Chicago. Now, stop crying and get to work." The screen went black. I sat there in the middle of the iron skillet, tears streaming down my face, dripping onto the table, and I didn't care who saw. I looked at Elena. She was crying too, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. She played us both. I whispered, wiping my face with my sleeve. "She set us up." She did. Elena managed a watery smile. "She told me, he's going to be a wreck, and you're going to be lonely because you work too much. So go fix him up a little." I tried to tell her that's not how ethics work, but you couldn't say no to Tasha. No, I agreed. You never could. We sat there for a long time, just two strangers bound together by a ghost, drinking cold coffee. Finally, I looked at her. I haven't put up a tree in 2 years. Jojo asks, and I tell her I'm too busy. I tell her the lights are broken. I've been lying to my kid because I can't handle opening the boxes. Elena reached out and touched my hand, a tentative, professional touch that somehow felt like an anchor. Well, you heard the boss. Step 1 is a tree. And I've got a pickup truck full of lights in the parking lot because I knew you wouldn't have any. We left the diner and driving home, I felt a panic rising. I was bringing a stranger into my sanctuary, into the house where Tasha's perfume still lingered on her sweaters in the closet. But then I thought about Jojo, my little girl, 7 years old now, who had spent the last 2 years tiptoeing around her father's grief like it was broken glass. When we got to the house, Jojo was sitting on the living room floor with the babysitter, watching cartoons. She looked up when I walked in with Elena, her eyes going wide. Jojo has Tasha's eyes, big and dark and searching. Daddy? She asked, looking from me to Elena. Who's this? I took a deep breath, kneeling down to hug her, smelling her strawberry shampoo. Jojo, this is Ms. Elena. She was a friend of Mommy's, and she's here to help us do something we should have done a long time ago. What? Jojo asked, suspicious. We're going to get a tree, baby. A real one. The scream of joy that came out of that child's mouth was the best and most painful sound I'd ever heard. It sounded like forgiveness. That night was a blur of pine needles and tangled wires. We went to a lot, bought a Douglas fir that was way too big for the living room, and dragged it in. Elena wasn't shy. She rolled up her sleeves, bossing me around just like Tasha used to, telling me the lights were uneven, lifting Jojo up to hang the ornaments. At one point, I went into the garage to get the box marked Mom's Specials, the fragile glass ornaments Tasha collected. I stood there in the cold garage, clutching that cardboard box, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel the crushing weight. I just felt tired, but a good tired. The kind of tired you feel after a hard day's work building something that matters. When I came back inside, Elena was on the floor with Jojo, untangling a string of tinsel, laughing at something my daughter said. I stopped in the doorway, watching them. Tasha had orchestrated this. She had seen this moment from her deathbed, a stranger bringing laughter back into her house, and she had willed it into existence. We ordered pizza. We drank hot chocolate, and when Jojo finally crashed, asleep on the rug under the glow of the tree lights, the house was quiet again. But it wasn't the heavy silence of the last 2 years. It was a peaceful silence. You okay? Elena asked, standing by the fireplace, looking at the photos of Tasha on the mantel. I don't know, I admitted, standing next to her. I feel like I'm cheating. Like being happy, even for a second, is a betrayal. It's not, Elena said, turning to face me. Grief is just love with nowhere to go, Caleb. But tonight, you gave it somewhere to go. You gave it to Jojo. You gave it to the tree. You didn't let it rot inside you. She handed me the envelope again. Read the letter. Not now. When you're ready. But read it. She left around midnight. I didn't try to kiss her. I didn't even hug her. I just shook her hand and thanked her for saving my Christmas. But as I watched her taillights fade down the snowy street, I realized I didn't want her to be a stranger anymore. 3 days passed, and the letter sat on my nightstand like a loaded gun. I walked past it every morning, ghosting my fingers over my name in Tasha's handwriting, feeling the vibration of her voice trapped inside the paper. Jojo was different, lighter. She sat by the tree every morning eating her cereal, staring at the lights like they were magic. And maybe they were. But me, I was terrified. Opening that letter meant accepting the finality of it all. It meant taking orders from a ghost who wanted me to move on. And I wasn't sure I knew how to be Caleb Vance without the grief. It had become my armor. On Christmas Eve, the house felt too big again. I had put Jojo to bed, reading her the night before Christmas 3 times until her eyelids fluttered shut. And then I went downstairs and poured a glass of whiskey. I sat in the armchair, Tasha's chair, and stared at the tree Elena had helped decorate. The lights blurred, and I realized I was crying again, that deep, gut-wrenching sobbing that leaves you gasping for air. I pulled the letter out of my pocket. It was time. My hands shook so bad I ripped the envelope jaggedly. "My dearest Bear," it began. And just those 3 words nearly broke me. If you're reading this, you've met Elena. You've probably fought her. You've probably been stubborn and grumpy and tried to retreat into your cave. But if you're reading this, it means you listened. Good. I could hear her voice in my head, clear as a bell. "I need to tell you something I never said when I was sick, because I didn't want you to worry. I was scared, Caleb, not of dying well. A little of dying, but I was scared of what would happen to you. I saw the way you looked at me when the doctors gave us the news. I saw the light go out in your eyes, and I knew that if I didn't do something drastic, you'd spend the rest of your life punishing yourself for not being able to save me." I took a sip of whiskey, the burn grounding me. "So, I picked Elena. I watched her. She's like you, Caleb. She's broken too. She lost her husband in a car wreck 5 years ago. Did she tell you that? Probably not. She hides her pain behind taking care of others, just like you hide yours behind work. I saw 2 people drowning in the same ocean, and I thought, maybe they can be each other's raft." I stopped reading. Elena was a widow. She hadn't said a word. She just listened to me whine about my pain, absorbed my anger, and helped me hang ornaments, all while carrying her own tragedy. The shame hit me hot and fast. "I'm not asking you to marry her," the letter continued. "I'm asking you to see her, really see her, and in seeing her, maybe you'll remember how to see yourself. You are a good man, Caleb Vance. You are a wonderful father, but you are a terrible widow. You suck at being alone, so stop it. Love is not a finite resource. You don't have a limited tank of gas. Loving someone else doesn't mean you love me less. It just means your heart is getting bigger. Let it grow. P.S. The lasagna recipe is in the blue binder. Don't burn it. Love, T. I sat there for an hour, the letter clutched in my hand. Then I picked up the phone. It was 11:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. It was crazy, but Tasha was right. I sucked at being alone. "Hello?" Elena's voice was sleepy, confused. "You didn't tell me," I said, my voice rough. "Caleb, tell you what. Is Jojo okay? You didn't tell me you lost your husband. You let me rant and rave about my grief, and you stood there with your own ghost and didn't say a word." There was a silence on the line, heavy and thick. "It wasn't about me, Caleb. It was about you. It was about Tasha's wish." "Well, Tasha's wish was for us to be each other's raft," I said, quoting the letter. "Are you doing anything tomorrow morning?" I was going to work a shift at the hospital. Someone has to cover Christmas. Call in sick," I said, the audacity surprising even me. "Come over. Jojo needs help making pancakes, and I promised Tasha I wouldn't burn the lasagna." "I can't do this alone, Elena. I don't want to do this alone." She hesitated, and for a second, I thought I'd overstepped. Then, softly, "I make really good pancakes." She came over the next morning. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was chaotic. Jojo was tearing through wrapping paper. The kitchen was covered in flour, and the dog knocked over the tree stand at one point. But in the middle of the chaos, I looked at Elena. She was laughing, wiping syrup off Jojo's chin. Her eyes crinkled at the corners, and I felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't the lightning bolt I felt when I met Tasha. It was slower. It was the feeling of the sun coming out after a month of rain. It was warmth. We started slow. Coffee dates that turned into dinners. Walks in the park where we didn't say much, just let the silence be comfortable. We talked about Tasha. We talked about her husband, David. We unpacked our grief like old luggage, sorting through what to keep and what to let go. It wasn't easy. There were nights I felt guilty. Nights I pulled away because holding Elena's hand felt like cheating. But Elena was patient. She understood the geometry of loss better than anyone. She never tried to replace Tasha. She just made space for herself next to the memory. 6 months later, on a warm July evening, we were sitting on my back porch. Jojo was chasing fireflies in the yard. I looked at Elena, the way the setting sun caught the stray hairs escaping her messy bun, and I realized I wasn't looking at a nurse or a friend anymore. I was looking at my future. "You know," I said, leaning back in the Adirondack chair Tasha and I had built years ago. Marcus called me today. He asked if I wanted to bid on that pediatric wing job. The real one. Did you take it? Elena asked, sipping her iced tea. I did. I told him I'm ready to build something new. I reached over and took her hand. Her fingers laced with mine, fitting perfectly, like they were designed for it. Tasha was right, you know, about everything. She usually was. Elena smiled. She said love isn't a finite resource. She said my heart could grow. I looked her in the eyes. It's growing, Elena. It's pretty damn big right now. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Mine too, Caleb. Mine too. A year after that first meeting at the Iron Skillet, I took Elena back there. Same booth. Same bad coffee. I didn't have a manila envelope this time. I had a velvet box in my pocket. I was terrified, sweating through my shirt just like the first time, but not from grief. From hope, you know, I said, sliding the salt shaker back and forth. I hated you the first time we sat here. I know, she laughed. You looked like you wanted to throw the table at me. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad you didn't run away. I took a deep breath, slid out of the booth, and got down on one knee on the sticky diner floor. The waitress dropped a tray of silverware, clattering everywhere, but I didn't care. Elena Rossi, I said, my voice shaking. You saved me. You and Tasha, you conspired to save my life. I can't give you the past that belongs to the ghosts, but I want to give you the future. I want to build a house with you. I want to burn lasagna with you. I want to be your raft. She said yes before I even opened the box. The whole diner cheered, probably the same people who watched me cry a year ago. We got married in the backyard. Jojo was the flower girl, and she wore a locket with Tasha's picture in it, because we wanted her there. During the vows, Marcus, my best man, the guy who started it all, handed me a ring. I looked out at the crowd, at my friends, at my family, and then at Elena, standing there in a white dress that wasn't traditional, but was perfect for her. I looked up at the sky for a second. It was a clear blue day. Thanks, T, I whispered. You were right. The blue paint was a better choice. Now, every Christmas, we have a tradition. We put up the tree together. We play Tasha's favorite Motown Christmas album. And we write letters, not to ghosts, but to each other. We write down what we're grateful for. And every year, the first line of my letter is the same. I'm grateful for the trick. So, here's the thing I want you to take away from this. We all think we have to be strong. We think honoring the dead means dying with them. But it doesn't. The greatest tribute you can give to the people you lost is to live the hell out of the life they didn't get to finish. Tasha knew that. She knew I needed permission to be happy again. Maybe you do too. Maybe you're sitting there right now, holding onto something heavy, thinking you have to carry it forever. You don't. You can put it down. You can let yourself be tricked into happiness. I want to know, have you ever had someone push you into something you thought you hated, only to find out it was exactly what you needed? Have you ever found love in the wreckage of a storm? Tell me your stories in the comments. Let's talk about second chances. And do me a favor, go hug the people you love. Right now. Don't wait for a letter. Just do it. I'm Caleb Vance, and thanks for listening to my story. Keep building, guys. Even if you have to start with just one brick.